What about lectures? Now, when you get up in front of your class to teach some material, often you will lecture, you'll give a lot of information, and there are some things that you can do to help your international students in this process. Because remember, when you're lecturing, this is when they have to take notes. And they have all of these different, we talked about in the last lesson, all the different processes they're going through. Listening to you, decoding what you're saying, prioritizing what's important, summarizing that, encoding it into English, figuring out how to write it, and actually writing it. And meanwhile, you're still going. So there are certain things you can do to help students in that process, make it a little easier for them. And I would venture to say that this is helpful not only for your internationals, but for your Americans as well. So we're on lecture styles, and the first thing is to review what you did yesterday, or the last class session, or even better, have a student in the class review it and summarize it. So this is checking to see if they were paying attention and see if they grasped the most important concepts of the last session and the last lecture. Second, if at all possible, put a partial outline on the board or provide it to them in paper form. And you might want to leave spaces so that they can also fill in additional notes, but it's really helpful if you can put something on the board to indicate to them what is most important in your lecture. You can also exaggerate, so when you make the most important points, say it over and over and over again. Say it more loudly, make a big deal, give an example, illustrate it. Say, this is important. Write this in your notes. Try to be really specific. Allow waiting and thinking time. So, as they go through these 6 processes of listening and prioritizing, or decoding, prioritizing, summarizing, encoding, and writing, you can sometimes stop. Give them some time to actually write things down so that you're not just continually going like this and half of what you're saying is not being heard because they're working away, okay? So slow down. Allow them time to wait, to think, to write, even to reflect, okay? Also reference the book when there are things that you say that connect directly to material in the book. Let them know what page it's on. For internationals, it can really help them to go home, read the book passage that's on the same material so that they see, they've heard you say it, they've read it, and that gives them the information twice, so it gives them twice the chance to really grasp it. Ask concept checking questions like we just talked about in the last assignment. Take a pause and ask a question that shows you whether they were listening. So stop for a moment and ask, okay, so now what did I say Hitler did at the beginning of World War II? What was his first approach or his first tactic? Okay, and that forces the students to really go back and see whether what you said, and it allows you to see whether they actually heard it and wrote it and remembered it. Keep it simple. If students ask you a question about the material, provide nuance only if it's important, okay? You should usually just give a direct answer as simple as possible, because additional nuance that's not directly related to the question can really confuse international students, okay? And finally, consider letting them record it. A lot of them have MP3 recorders nowadays, so if you are open to that, that really helps internationals because they can take that recording home and any parts of your lecture that they miss, they can play it and they can fill in the blanks. What about classroom discussion and participation? This is one of the most challenging issues for internationals, one of the places where they struggle the most, even according to our teachers here. The ways that you can help them are, first, Be clear about your expectations. I've mentioned that before. Help them to know when they're going to be expected to speak. Fair warning. This is a big one, and I've noticed a big difference in performance for my internationals if I give them warning the day before. If I tell them, okay, Eugen, tomorrow I'm going to want you to answer these questions. Then she has the overnight to think about it, to write out her answers, and the next day she's always ready. But if I ask her right on the spot without giving her some time to think about it, she can sometimes be lost and look like a deer in headlights. So give them fair warning so that they can think through what they're going to say and prepare it. Partner checking is also really helpful if you're going over the answers to an assignment. If they've done an assignment and you're asking, okay, Carrie, what's number 1? Well, Carrie might be a little bit nervous that she has the wrong answer. And if she calls out the wrong answer, then the whole class notices that she got the wrong answer. And that can be very embarrassing, especially to an international student. But before you do that, if you just take 3 minutes and say, Carrie, check with your partner, and everyone across the room, check with the person next to you, see if you got the same answers. Often the mistakes get cleared up then. And then when I ask Carrie what's the answer for number 1, she's more confident. Okay, it definitely is A. Because my partner had A, so it's probably A. So we put it up there. Occasionally you'll still have mistakes, but it really helps enhance confidence if they checked with a partner first. Call on specific students. If you ask a question like, what is the message behind the story of the prodigal son? What does it say about the father's love? And you just ask it to the classroom. You will not necessarily get an answer from international students. You might have 1 or 2 who are bold, but often they'll all look at you and they'll just wait. But if you ask a specific student, what is the message behind the prodigal son, then they will answer. So call on them to get past their shyness. Involve everyone. Be sure that those 1 or 2 loud students who are very confident don't dominate the conversation. Also, after you ask a question, allow for wait time. Again, just like you allow for wait time during lectures, you allow for wait time during class discussion. Sometimes when you ask a student a question, they need a few seconds to think about and comprehend the question and think about their answer before it comes out of their mouth. Don't assume that they don't know the answer. That being said, you might want to give international students a chance to pass. So if they really don't know the answer or they're really not sure, you could say, okay, whenever I ask you a question in class, you can pass once, but know that I'm going to come back to you for the next question. Okay. Also, if you're asking questions and the student gives you a correct answer, be careful not to jump on them immediately with a follow-up question. Unless you know that they can handle it, because it can be very confusing if they're in the middle of answering one question and you jump on them with another question. Indirect correction. In a lot of cultures, and especially Asian cultures, they're shame-based. So if a student gives a wrong answer and you directly say, that's wrong, then it causes a lot of shame and a lot of embarrassment to them. What you can say is you can mirror their answer either in a question or you can mirror it but change it to the correct answer. So if a student says, I use this a lot with grammatical structures, if a student says, I have to study tonight, I might say, I have to study tonight. And they know, and then they say, I have to study tonight. And they realize their mistake. Or if a student says, Mussolini was the leader of Germany in World War II. And I might say, Mussolini was the leader of Germany in World War II? And that'll clue the student in, I mean Italy, okay? So by mirroring in that way, it's a more indirect way of cluing them into their error and helping lead them towards a correct answer. Finally, foster a listening culture. So create an atmosphere in your classroom where students expect to even be asked questions about one another's comments. If one student makes a comment, you might ask another, Sam, what did she just say? What do you think about that? Do you agree with her? Okay, so the students know that they always have to be listening not only to you, the teacher, but to one another, because they might be asked to respond and to give input and to give their own opinion of what another student has said. Finally, circulate. If you're up here at the front, the guys in the back are going to probably disengage, but if you're moving around the room, you're close to students, that fosters more participation amongst them. All right, we talked about academic dishonesty and plagiarism. So this is an issue. We talked about why students sometimes go down that road. So what do we do about it? How do we prevent that? First, talk openly about it. Bring it up early in the school year. Talk about what it means, how it's viewed here. Ask your internationals how it's viewed in their countries, whether it is allowed, whether it's technically not allowed, but nobody enforces that rule. What is the view in their own culture? Then be very, very clear about what our perspective is on plagiarism, what constitutes plagiarism, and what the consequences are. Okay. There's a little video on this slide that gives you a very clear explanation of plagiarism for an ESL learner. Also, there's assignment 5C. This is examples of plagiarism. So this is one resource you can use to give your students examples of plagiarism, because you might be able to talk about it in general, but until you show a student exactly what it is, they might not get it. So you really need to show them a tangible example. This video was made by a university in Dubai, and it gives specific examples, reenacts, dramatizes 4 specific situations where students have committed various forms of plagiarism, whether it is copying off the internet, copying off a fellow student, or even paying someone to write a paper for you. So the different ways that you can commit plagiarism. For this assignment, I want you to watch this video. It's about 10 minutes long, and the link is in this slide and also in the assignment document in your file. I want you to just tell me whether you think you would use this in class, whether you think this is helpful, and why or why not you would use it.